3 months after the enhanced alliance was signed, the rains failed to come to Altheria. Queen Elise stood at the palace window, watching farmers stare helplessly at their withering crops. The irony was cruel. Just as they had secured peace with Khazara, nature itself threatened their prosperity. "Your Majesty," Marcus said, entering the chamber with scrolls under his arm. At 71, he moved slower, but his mind remained sharp. "The grain stores are adequate for now, but if the drought continues another month, we will face serious shortages." Elise turned from the window, her heart heavy. King Rowan had traveled to Khazara with their son 2 weeks ago to oversee the implementation of the joint military training program. She had encouraged them to go, never imagining she would face a crisis alone so soon. "Have the provincial governors reported their reserves?" she asked. "Yes, and that is where our problem lies." Marcus spread the scrolls on the table. "The northern province, governed by Lord Jonathan's nephew, has plenty, but they refuse to share with the southern villages until they are certain of their own safety." "They are hoarding," Elise said quietly, recognizing the pattern. This was exactly what had happened before her time, before cooperation became the kingdom's foundation. "Some call it prudence," Marcus replied carefully. "These young people have never known true hunger, Your Majesty. They have only known abundance. Now that scarcity threatens, old instincts return." A knock interrupted them. A young messenger entered, bowing quickly. "Your Majesty, there is unrest in the market square. Merchants are raising prices on grain, and people are fighting over supplies." Elise closed her eyes briefly. The peace they had worked so hard to build was fracturing. "Summon the council immediately. And send word to the villages. I want to hear from the people themselves, not just the governors." As the messenger left, Marcus spoke gently. "Your Majesty, perhaps we should recall King Rowan and Prince Adebayo. This crisis requires—" "No," Elise said firmly. "The alliance with Khazara is fragile and new. If Rowan abandons it at the first sign of trouble here, King Malik will lose faith in our commitment. And Adebayo must learn to finish what he starts." She straightened her shoulders. "Besides, I led this kingdom through crisis before. I can do it again." That evening, Elise walked through the poorest quarter of the capital, something she had not done in years. She wore a simple wrapper instead of her royal attire, with only 2 guards following at a distance. She wanted to see the truth, not the version officials presented. What she found troubled her deeply. Young families were indeed hoarding supplies, hiding sacks of grain in their homes. Neighbors who had once shared freely now eyed each other with suspicion. The spirit of cooperation that had defined Altheria for 2 decades seemed to be evaporating like morning dew. "They have forgotten," a raspy voice said from the shadows. Elise turned to see Gregory emerging from an alley, leaning heavily on his walking stick. At 79, he was frilier than ever, but his eyes still held their keen intelligence. "Gregory," Elise said warmly, embracing the old merchant carefully. "I should have known you would appear when trouble came." "I have been watching," Gregory replied. "And I have been worried. These young ones, they grew up with full bellies and peaceful nights. They do not remember the old hunger, the old fear. They think it is a story, not a reality that could return." "Then we must remind them," Elise said, determination filling her voice. "Will you help me, old friend? Will you tell them what it was truly like before cooperation saved us?" Gregory smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "I am old, Your Majesty, and my time grows short. But yes, I will tell them. They need to understand what their parents and grandparents fought to overcome. They need to know that the golden legacy is not automatic. It must be chosen again and again, especially when it is hardest." As they walked back toward the palace together, Elise felt the weight of leadership pressing down on her. Rowan was far away. Adebayo was still learning. The kingdom faced a test not of conquest or conspiracy, but of character. Would this generation choose cooperation when resources were scarce? Or would they revert to the selfishness that had once nearly destroyed them? The drought had revealed a deeper truth. Prosperity had made them comfortable, but it had not made them wise. Now, before the rains returned, they would need to remember why cooperation mattered. Not because it was easy during abundance, but because it was essential during scarcity. In Kazara's newly established joint military training grounds, Prince Adebayo sparred with Kazaran warriors under the afternoon sun. The program was succeeding beyond anyone's expectations. Altherian and Kazaran soldiers training together, sharing techniques, building brotherhood. King Rowan watched from the shade, pride evident on his face. His son had truly come into his own these past months. But that pride turned to concern when a messenger arrived, dust-covered from hard riding. "Your Majesty," the messenger gasped, kneeling before Rowan. "Urgent news from Altheria. Drought has struck. Queen Elise requests that you be informed, though she insists you need not return immediately." Rowan's jaw tightened. He knew his wife. If she was sending word at all, the situation was serious. "How bad?" "The southern provinces are suffering, Your Majesty. There is unrest in the markets. Some villages are hoarding grain while others go hungry." Adebayo had stopped sparring and approached, overhearing the conversation. "Father, we must return home immediately." Before Rowan could respond, King Malik strode across the training ground, his expression troubled. Princess Nola followed close behind, her usually bright eyes clouded with worry. "King Rowan, Prince Adebayo," Malik said formally, "I have also received troubling news. The northern warlords are gathering forces. They claim our alliance with Altheria has made Kazara weak. They say sending our warriors to train with yours instead of conquering new territories is foolishness." "How serious is this rebellion?" Rowan asked, though he already suspected the answer. "Serious enough that I may need to mobilize our armies," Malik replied, his voice strained. "They are testing whether I have the strength to hold the kingdom my father left me." Adebayo looked between his father and Malik, his mind racing. 2 kingdoms, 2 crises, and he was caught between them. His homeland needed him, but so did his ally. "Brother," Princess Nola spoke up, "there is something else you should know. I have been hearing whispers among the palace staff. Some of our own nobles are sympathetic to the northern rebels. They believe cooperation makes us vulnerable." Malik's face darkened. "Traitors within the palace?" "Not openly," Nola clarified. "But Lord Devon and his faction have been meeting in secret. They speak of preserving Kazara's strength and remembering our warrior heritage. I fear they may be planning to support the Northern Rebellion if it gains momentum." King Rowan placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. "The alliance is being tested on both sides. This is exactly what we feared, that the next generation would question what their parents built." "Then what do we do?" Adebayo asked, frustration evident in his young voice. "My mother faces crisis alone. King Malik faces rebellion. If we separate now, if I abandon the alliance to rush home, we prove the skeptics right, that cooperation only works during prosperity. But if you stay while your kingdom suffers," Malik said quietly, "what kind of prince abandons his people in their time of need?" The question hung in the air like a knife. Adebayo felt torn in 2 directions. Every instinct screamed at him to ride home immediately, to stand beside his mother, to help his people. But he also knew that King Malik needed support. The young king was facing the same doubts Adebayo had conquered, whether cooperation was strength or weakness. That evening, as they gathered in Malik's private chambers, General Hossan delivered more grim news. "The northern forces have taken the city of Bahar. They have declared it a free territory, no longer bound by the crown's weak policies. We must crush them immediately," one of Malik's advisors said. "Show no mercy. Remind the kingdom of your strength." "Violence will only prove their point," Adebayo countered. "They claim you are strong with fists but weak in wisdom. If you respond with only military might, you confirm their argument." "Then what would you suggest, Prince?" the advisor asked with barely concealed disdain. That we send them flowers and kind words. I suggest we prove that cooperation is not weakness, Adebayo said, an idea forming in his mind. But I need time to think. And I need to know what is happening in my own kingdom. Later that night, Princess Nola found Adebayo standing on the palace balcony, staring in the direction of Altheria. You are thinking of leaving, she said softly. I should be with my mother, Adebayo replied. She has guided this kingdom through so much, but she should not face this alone. And yet, if you leave now, my brother will face his crisis alone, Nola pointed out. The alliance will appear to be merely words, strong during peace, abandoned during trouble. Adebayo turned to face her. What would you do, princess, if you were torn between two kingdoms you loved? Nola was quiet for a moment, then said, I would ask myself, where can I make the greatest difference? Your mother is wise and experienced. She has faced drought before. But my brother, he has never faced a true crisis. He needs proof that cooperation works not just when it is easy, but especially when it is hard. You are that proof, Prince Adebayo. But my people. Your people have Queen Elise, Nola interrupted gently. A woman who was once an orphan with nothing, who became a queen and transformed a kingdom. Trust her, as she trusts you to do what is right. Adebayo knew she was correct, but the knowledge did not make the choice easier. In Altheria's main market square, Queen Elise stood on a raised platform before a crowd of thousands. The sun beat down mercilessly, a cruel reminder of the rain that refused to come. She wore her full royal regalia, crown gleaming in the harsh light, but her expression was not one of command. It was one of appeal. My people, she began, her voice carrying across the square, I stand before you not as a queen, but as someone who remembers hunger. The crowd quieted, curiosity replacing anger. 23 years ago, I was an orphan. I had no family, no home, no certainty of my next meal. I know what it is to go to bed hungry, to wake up wondering if anyone cared whether I lived or died. She paused, letting her words sink in. Gregory stepped forward slowly, leaning on his walking stick. The crowd murmured, everyone knew his story, but few had seen the legendary merchant in years. Tell them, Elise said gently. Tell them what it was like before. Gregory's voice was weaker than it once had been, but it still carried the weight of truth. I am old now, nearly 80 years. I have lived through famine, through war, through times when neighbors killed each other over a sack of grain. I have seen children die in the streets while wealthy men's storehouses overflowed. He paused, catching his breath. A young woman in the crowd helped him sit on a stool someone had brought forward. Before the cooperation began, Gregory continued, this kingdom was dying. Not from drought. We have survived droughts. We were dying from selfishness. Every man hoarded what he had, trusted no one, shared nothing. And so when disaster came, we fell apart like dry leaves in the wind. But we have grain now, someone shouted from the crowd. Why should the North share with the South? Why should I give away what my family needs? Because, Gregory replied, your family does not exist in isolation. When the South starves, who will buy the North's goods? When villages empty because people flee to find food elsewhere, who will work the fields when the rains return? When trust is broken, who will help you when the drought reaches your door? An older woman pushed through the crowd. Elise recognized her. Margaret, who had been one of the first children saved by the orphanage program. My queen, Margaret said, her voice shaking with emotion. I am 41 years old. I was one of the orphans you saved. I now have children of my own, and they have never known hunger. But these young ones. She gestured to the crowd. They do not understand. They think resources are unlimited. They think cooperation is a luxury, not a necessity. Then let us teach them, Elise said firmly. She raised her voice to address the entire crowd. I am opening the royal grain reserves. Every family in need will receive rations. But I am also asking each village, each household that has extra, to contribute what they can spare. Not by force, but by choice. And if they refuse? Lord Jonathan's voice rang out. He stood at the edge of the crowd, arms crossed. What then, your majesty? Will you let the selfish hoard while the generous starve? It was a fair question, and Elise had wrestled with it all night. If they refuse, she said slowly, then we will remember who chose community and who chose isolation. When the rains return, and they will return, we will remember who stood together and who stood alone. The golden legacy is not a law I can enforce. It is a choice each of you must make. The crowd murmured, divided. Some nodded in agreement. Others looked skeptical. Then something unexpected happened. A young man stepped forward. He could not have been more than 25. Your Majesty, I am Daniel, son of a farmer in the northern province. My father has grain stored. He told me to keep it, to think only of our family. But... He paused, looking around at his fellow citizens. My father also told me stories of the old days, when his brother died of starvation while merchants sold grain at prices no one could afford. He said he never wanted to be that kind of man. Daniel's voice grew stronger. I will bring half our surplus to the distribution center. Because I do not want to be the man who had plenty while children starved. I do not want to be the reason this kingdom fails. For a moment, silence. Then another young person stepped forward. I will bring a quarter of what we have stored. Then another. My family will contribute. And another. We have 2 sacks we can spare. Not everyone volunteered. Some in the crowd turned away, clinging to their private stores. But enough stepped forward that Elise felt hope kindle in her chest. As the crowd dispersed, Marcus approached the Queen. That was a risk, Your Majesty. You gambled that they would choose cooperation. I did not gamble, Elise replied, watching the young volunteers organize themselves. I trusted. There is a difference. Gregory touched her arm gently. You have done well, child. But the real test is still ahead. Words and promises are easy. Let us see if they follow through when hunger truly bites. That night, as Elise reviewed distribution lists by candlelight, a messenger arrived from Kazara. She broke the seal with trembling fingers, desperate for news of her husband and son. The letter was from Rowan. My beloved, I have heard of the drought. I wanted to return immediately, but Adebayo convinced me to stay. He says you are the strongest person he knows, and he trusts you completely. Kazara faces rebellion. The alliance is being tested here as well. We will send what aid we can, but it may be little. All my faith is in you. You saved this kingdom once. You can do it again. Elise set down the letter, tears streaming down her face. Her family was far away. Her kingdom was in crisis. The young generation was divided. And yet, she was not alone. Gregory was here. Daniel and others like him were choosing cooperation. The legacy was being tested, yes, but it was not yet broken. In Kazara, Prince Adebayo stood before King Malik's war council, his mind racing through calculations and consequences. The rebel forces had grown stronger, now controlling 3 cities in the north. Malik's advisors demanded military action. General Hossan had already mobilized half the kingdom's forces. But Adebayo saw a different path, one that terrified him with its risk, yet called to him with its potential. Your Majesty, he addressed Malik formally, aware that every eye in the council chamber was upon him. I have a proposal, but it will sound like madness. Malik, looking exhausted from days of strategic planning, gestured for him to continue. Prince Adebayo, you have already proven your wisdom. Speak. Send grain to Altheria, Adebayo said simply. The council chamber erupted. Advisors shouted over each other. Impossible. We face rebellion. Our own people need those reserves. General Hassan's voice cut through the chaos. Prince Adebayo, with all respect, have you lost your senses? We are on the brink of civil war, and you suggest we give away resources. Not give away, Adebayo countered, his voice steady. Invest. King Malik, your father built an alliance with Altheria during his time of need. Now Altheria faces drought while you face rebellion. The rebels claim cooperation makes you weak. What better way to prove them wrong than to demonstrate that real strength means helping allies even when you face your own challenges? That proves nothing but foolishness. Lord Devon, leader of the noble faction sympathetic to the rebels, stood angrily. Your Majesty, this foreign prince would have you weaken Khazara to save his homeland. Can you not see he serves his own interests? I serve the alliance, Adebayo said firmly, meeting Devon's hostile gaze. And the alliance means both kingdoms strengthen each other, especially during crisis. King Rowan, who had been silent until now, spoke up. My son is right. When Khazara faced drought years ago, Altheria sent aid without hesitation. That is what partnership means. That was different, Devon argued. King Jabari was beloved. King Malik must prove himself through strength, not charity. Malik held up his hand for silence. His face was unreadable. Everyone leave us. I will speak with Prince Adebayo and King Rowan alone. The advisors filed out reluctantly, Lord Devon casting dark looks over his shoulder. When they were alone, Malik dropped his formal demeanor and rubbed his face tiredly. Adebayo, I want to help your kingdom. Truly, I do. But Devon is not entirely wrong. My people are angry. They see the alliance as my father's legacy, not mine. If I send grain to Altheria now, some will call it treason. Some will, Adebayo agreed. But others will see it as the truest form of strength, keeping your word when it costs you something. And if the rebellion grows because of this decision? Malik asked quietly. If my throne falls because I chose honor over pragmatism? Princess Nola's voice came from the doorway. Then you will fall as a great king, brother, not a fearful one. They turned to see her entering, having clearly listened from outside. Nola, Malik began. I spoke with the kitchen servants, the stable hands, the common soldiers. Nola interrupted, walking to stand before her brother. Do you know what they say? They say you are trying too hard to be different from father. They say you are strong, yes, but they wonder if you are wise. They remember that father's greatness came not from conquest, but from knowing when to fight and when to build. The people loved father because he brought them prosperity through peace, she continued. If you send aid to Altheria now, the common people will see it as strength. Only the ambitious nobles like Devon will call it weakness, because they want war. War makes ambitious men powerful. Malik looked at his sister with new respect. When did you become so wise, little sister? I have been watching and listening as you taught me, Nola replied with a slight smile. And I have learned from Prince Adebayo that true leadership is not about appearing strong. It is about being strong enough to do what is right, even when others question you. King Rowan placed a hand on Malik's shoulder. King Malik, I cannot tell you what to do. This is your kingdom, your decision. But I will tell you this. When you look back on your reign years from now, do you want to remember the king who hoarded grain and crushed rebels with force? Or the king who kept faith with his allies and proved that cooperation is not weakness? Malik was silent for a long moment. Then he called for General Hossan. When the general entered, Malik's voice was firm with decision. General, prepare a convoy. We will send 50 wagons of grain to Altheria. Hassan's eyes widened. Your Majesty, that is nearly a third of our emergency reserves. I know exactly what it is, Malik replied, and I know what it means. Prepare the convoy under heavy guard. If the rebels want to test my strength, let them attack a mercy mission. Let them show the kingdom who they truly are, those who would steal food from the hungry to make a political point. After Hossan left to carry out the orders, clearly uncertain but obedient, Adebayo approached Malik. Thank you, he said simply. This is a greater gift than grain. You are giving my people hope. And you are proving to your own people what true kingship looks like. I am gambling everything on your mother's legacy, Malik replied. Do not make me regret it, my friend. As news of the decision spread through the palace, reactions were exactly as predicted. Common soldiers and servants spoke with pride about their king's honor. But Lord Devon and his faction grew darker and more dangerous in their plotting. Princess Nola brought this news to Adebayo that evening. Devon is planning something. He has sent riders north to the rebel forces. I think he intends to arrange an attack on the grain convoy. Then we must be prepared, Adebayo said. King Rowan and I will ride with the convoy. If Devon wants to prove cooperation is weakness, he will have to prove it by spilling royal blood. The convoy of 50 grain wagons rolled across the border from Khazara into Altheria, flanked by 200 Khazaran soldiers. Prince Adebayo and King Rowan rode at the front alongside General Hossan. King Malik had wanted to lead the convoy himself, but Princess Nala had convinced him that leaving the capital undefended would be true foolishness. The journey had been tense. Twice, they had spotted rebel scouts watching from distant hills. But no attack had come, yet. They are waiting, General Hossan said quietly, scanning the horizon. Waiting for us to reach Altherian territory, where an attack could be blamed on your people, Prince Adebayo. Devon is cunning. Let them come, Rowan replied grimly. An attack on this convoy will reveal their true nature to everyone. As they crested the final hill before Altheria's capital, Adebayo gasped. Below them, hundreds of people lined the road. Men, women, children, all waiting. At their head stood Queen Elise, wearing her crown and royal attire, with old Gregory beside her. When the convoy reached the gathering, Elise stepped forward. Adebayo dismounted and embraced his mother tightly. I wanted to come home, he whispered. I wanted to be here to help you. You did help me, Elise replied, loud enough for the crowd to hear. You stayed in Khazara and convinced King Malik to prove that our alliance is real. This grain is not charity, it is partnership. It is proof that cooperation works even when it is hardest. She turned to address the crowd. My people, behold what true strength looks like. King Malik faces rebellion in his own kingdom, yet he sends aid to us. He risks his throne to honor his word. This is the strength of character, not the strength of the sword. A young man pushed through the crowd, Daniel, who had been the first to volunteer his family's grain weeks ago. Your Majesty, we have also gathered contributions. While King Malik's convoy traveled here, we collected grain from every village that could spare it. The north shared with the south. The wealthy shared with the poor. We have enough to survive until the rains return. Gregory stepped forward, tears streaming down his weathered face. I am old, he said, his voice cracking with emotion. I have seen so much, famine, war, suffering. But today, I see something I never thought I would witness. I see two kingdoms helping each other when both face hardship. I see young people choosing cooperation over selfishness. The golden legacy. It endures. Suddenly, shouts erupted from the rear of the convoy. Rebel forces poured from the hills, not hundreds, but dozens. They had waited too long, and now faced 200 Khazaran warriors plus Altherian defenders. Lord Devon himself led them, his face twisted with rage. Traitors! You bring foreign grain when our own people need. Our people are being fed. Daniel shouted back. We shared among ourselves. This grain from Khazara is extra blessing, not our only hope. You attack a mercy mission to make a political point. That is not strength, that is cruelty. The rebels hesitated. They had expected to find desperate, hungry Altherians who might join their cause. Instead, they found a united people, standing with their Khazaran allies. General Hossan, seeing the rebels' uncertainty, made a bold move. He dismounted and walked forward alone, unarmed. I am General Hossan of Khazara, he announced. I have fought in 30 battles. I have killed men with my own hands. I know what strength is. And I tell you, King Malik has shown more strength in the past month than any conqueror. He has faced rebellion, internal conspiracy, and his own doubts. Yet he sent aid to an ally because it was right. That is the strength of a true king. One by one, the rebels lowered their weapons. Lord Devon, seeing his support crumble, tried to flee but was captured by his own men, who now realized they had been manipulated. 3 days later, in Khazara's throne room, King Malik sat in judgment. Lord Devon knelt before him in chains. "You plotted against the crown," Malik said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "You tried to overthrow the alliance my father built. You attacked a convoy bringing aid to our allies. What defense do you offer?" "I believed you were weak," Devon said bitterly. "I believed the alliance made us vulnerable." "And now?" Malik asked. Devon was silent for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he spoke with something like respect. "Now I see I was wrong. The common people speak of nothing but your honor. The soldiers boast about serving a king who keeps his word even at great cost. And the Altherians, they praise Khazara throughout their kingdom. You have made us stronger, not weaker. I am a fool." Malik considered this. "You are a fool. But you are also my subject, and I would rather have you serve Khazara wisely than die as a traitor. You will work in the grain distribution centers for 5 years, ensuring that no one in this kingdom goes hungry. You will learn what true strength means, serving others, not yourself." 2 weeks later, the rains came. First to Khazara, then to Altheria. The drought broke, and with it, the last doubts about the alliance. In Altheria's palace garden, Gregory sat on a stone bench, his breathing labored. At 79, the years of exile from power had aged him more than time itself. Queen Elise sat beside him, with King Rowan and Prince Adebayo standing nearby. "Your Majesty," Gregory said quietly, his voice weak, "I have lived long enough to see something I never imagined. The cooperation I once fought against. It has proven stronger than any force I knew." Elise held his weathered hand gently. "You have seen it, Gregory. And in these later years, your counsel helped guide the young ones. That matters." "I was a fool," Gregory whispered, tears in his cloudy eyes. "I plotted against you. I believed power came from control, from hoarding, from ruling with an iron fist. I was wrong." "You learned," Elise said softly, her compassionate nature evident even now. "And you chose to share that learning with others. Redemption is real, Gregory. You proved that." Gregory looked at Prince Adebayo. "Young prince, remember this. A man can be wrong for decades and still choose right in his final years. But how much better to choose wisely from the start." Prince Adebayo knelt beside him. "Your wisdom helped us navigate this crisis. Rest now." Gregory passed away peacefully that night. The funeral was small, attended by the royal family, some council members, and a few who remembered his later years of service. Not the thousands who might have come for a beloved hero, but a respectful gathering for a man who had found redemption. As they laid him to rest, Queen Elise spoke with her characteristic compassion. "Lord Gregory's life teaches us that no one is beyond redemption. He made terrible choices. He knows this, we know this. But when given mercy instead of execution, he chose to change. His later counsel helped guide our young people through this crisis. Let us remember not just his failures, but also his choice to become better. That is the grace we all hope for, the chance to learn, to grow, to choose differently." King Rowan added quietly, "He lived long enough to see cooperation triumph. Perhaps that was his true sentence, not death, but life long enough to witness his own beliefs proven wrong and Queen Elisa's vision proven right." In the months that followed, the alliance grew even stronger. King Rowan and King Malik met regularly, building on the foundation that had been tested and proven. Prince Adebayo continued his diplomatic work, now recognized throughout both kingdoms as a wise peacemaker. Lord Jonathan, who had once questioned whether cooperation could survive scarcity, became one of its strongest advocates. He established educational programs teaching young people about the kingdom's history, ensuring they would never forget the lessons their generation had learned. Daniel, the young farmer who had been first to volunteer, was appointed as an advisor on agricultural cooperation. His voice represented the new generation that had chosen wisely when tested. One evening, as the royal family gathered for dinner, Queen Elise looked around the table at her husband and son with profound gratitude. "We have been tested," she said quietly, "separately and together. And we have proven that what we built is not fragile, it is strong. Not because we are perfect, but because we remember why cooperation matters." King Rowan took her hand. "The next test will come someday. It always does. But now we know, the legacy can survive anything, as long as each generation chooses to honor it." Prince Adebayo nodded thoughtfully. "And when my time comes to lead, I will remember this. That true leadership is not about ruling, it is about serving. It is about keeping faith with allies even when it costs us something. It is about believing in people's better nature." Through the palace windows, they could see the lights of the capital below. The market square was peaceful, merchants closing their stalls for the evening, people walking home after a day's honest work. The drought was over, cooperation had triumphed, and the golden legacy lived on. The golden legacy endured, tested by fire, proven true. And the orphan's dream of a world where cooperation conquered cruelty lived on, carried forward by those who remembered that true strength lies not in what we keep for ourselves, but in what we freely give to others. The story was not over. New challenges would come. But now, 3 generations had proven that the golden heart would continue to beat, as long as there were people willing to choose compassion over cruelty, cooperation over selfishness, and service over power. Incredible. Gregory's legacy is secure and the golden heart beats on. Through drought, rebellion, and crisis, cooperation triumphed. If this story moved your heart, smash that like button and subscribe to Folktales by Inaya. Drop a comment. What lesson from this journey will you carry with you? Which moment touched you most? Share this series with someone who needs to hear this message. But wait, the story continues. King Rowan, Queen Elise, and Prince Adebayo still have more challenges ahead. Turn on notifications because you do not want to miss what happens next. The golden legacy continues.